Good day, everybody. My name is Ms. Mabue, and I welcome you to today's lessons of business studies under the topic, the impact of recent legislation on businesses. And for today, we'll be focusing on the two legislation, which is called the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, as well as COIDA. This is a grade 12 lesson. Right, let's move on. It says here, did you know commercial farm workers experienced centuries of exploitation and abuse until the 1990s. At this point, progressive legislation was put into effect for workers aimed at improving their living and working conditions, including establishing minimum wages for their sector. This is by Stephen Dvorak in 2019. So for this lesson, just like each and every lesson, we've got our lesson objectives. Our lesson objectives goes as follows. As indicated, we'll be focusing on the two, the BCA and the COIDA. So it says here at the end of the lesson, you should be able to outline the purpose of the acts. So these two acts that we'll be referring to, it's the BCA and the COIDA. You should be able to outline the purpose. You should be able to describe the impact. Remember, impact is the positives and the negatives of the acts on businesses. You should be able to explain ways in which businesses can comply with the acts. As a business, we have to comply, or else if we do not comply, there will be discriminatory. That would be considered as discriminatory. So we should be able to discuss actions regarded as discriminatory by these acts that we'll be discussing. And also suggest penalties for non-compliances to the various acts. Penalties, what does it mean? If we do not comply, will be there are penalties that we have to pay, maybe be it a fee or what. Right, we should also recommend the provisions of the BCEA. Right, this is the only legislation that has got provisions. Not COIDA, not any other legislation, but only the BCEA has provisions. So you should be able to recommend the provisions. All right, so this is our journey for today's lesson. So as stated, it's the impact, we're discussing the impact on recent legislation. And these legislation that we'll be focusing on, it's the COIDA and the BCEA. Like I said, though, we're focusing on the purpose, the impact, ways to comply, penalties, and also we'll be looking at the provisions of the BCEA. Just like I mentioned, the BCEA are only, the provisions are only for the BCEA, not for COIDA, not for any other legislation. Very important that you understand. So this is the journey for today. Right, so pre-knowledge practice, this is what is expected of you. You should know the following or know the acts. Skills Development Act. By now you should know what Skills Development Act is all about, the Labor Relations Act, and the Employment Equity Act, which is your EEA. Right, so let's see and test our memory and see if we remember all these legislations that I've just mentioned there. It says here, state the focus of each of the acts that are listed below, your SDA, your LRA, and your EEA. What is the focus? Remember, in order for you to understand the legislation, you must understand the focus. What is the act all about, basically? So what is the skills development all about? The act focuses on the training of employees within the workplace. So the key word is what? Is training of employees that are within the workplace. Whereas with the Labor Relations Act, it focuses on managing labor disputes. So disputes, you're talking about disagreements within the workplace. Then the Employment Equity Act focuses on ensuring equality in the process of employing. So we want to ensure that everybody is treated equally, be it through payment or what. All right, so these are the new words and language that we'll be learning throughout the lesson. So we'll be talking about compliances. I'm sure you heard me when I said in this lesson we'll have to speak about the non-compliances. So when you comply, it refers to acting according to the set of rules. Now with legislation, we have to comply. So what does compliance mean? Acting according to the set of rules, whereas if you do not comply, there are penalties that will be subjected to as the business. So what does penalties mean? It refers to punishment of doing or for doing something that is against the law. So meaning if you do not comply, then you'll be punished. Then you've got your BCEA. This act sets minimum standard for employment in order to promote fair labor practices. We cannot employ and not comply with the BCEA. Then we've got the COIDA, which is also one of the legislations that we'll be focusing on today. The Act gives employees who are injured, very important, who are injured or they've contracted diseases while on duty, the right to claim compensation. Very, very, very important that you understand. So this is what we'll be doing throughout this lesson. So for now, we're going to go onto a quick ad break, and then when we come back, we continue actually with our journey for today. Don't forget, I said we'll be focusing on the BCA and the COIRA. So I'll see you just now.